Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of this podcast where we talk about video game music. Last week, if you listened to it, we were talking about Spyro the Dragon. It was really cool. Go check it out. But this week, we are going to be talking about The Last of Us. My name is Tyler Sampson, and I am here with Christian Clark, and this is 8-Bit Symphony.
Howdy.
So, to start off, why don't we give a little history about us playing the game. What do you remember about playing this game?
What do I remember about playing this game? Well, what I remember the most about playing The Last of Us is I was actually playing the remastered version on the PS4. So I played this 2 years ago before I moved to California.
So you didn't play it on PS3?
I did not play it on PS3, so I'm not sure how different anything is and if they added like cutscenes.
No. It's the same game. The only difference is the PS4 version has Left Behind included, and it's got upgraded visuals and better frame rate.
Yeah, what I remember most about the game, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't really remember anything about the gameplay of The Last of Us, and so that didn't like blow my mind. But the story had me playing nonstop. Like, it was so captivating that I just could not stop playing The Last of Us, and I just couldn't put it down. And every little moment here and there where I thought things could not get any worse for them, and just this world in general, they just kept getting worse and worse. And I don't know, it's like the greatest. It puts The Walking Dead to shame.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. in every regard. Even if you're including the Telltale's Walking Dead, that game was great, but there's something about this game that just really trumps it. I mean, besides the obvious, visual differences, the storytelling is just spectacular in The Last of Us. As for me, I played it when it came out on PS3. The day it came out, I just rushed down and got it because I was so hyped about it. And I played through and I beat it in, I want to say, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever shed so many tears to a video game in my life. It was just spectacular. From the opening scene when Sarah dies to Henry and Sam. Oh yeah, spoilers by the way, guys.
Put a spoiler warning.
Yeah. When Henry and Sam come in and then end up dying, to when you meet David's character in Winter, and that whole story arc with Joel trying to hunt down and find him and find Ellie, to the growth of the characters from Joel accepting Ellie as a person and almost as a daughter, to Ellie kind of coming to terms with her dealings and starting to trust Joel. Just the whole thing was, as you said, a story masterpiece. I mean, as far as video games, I'm sure people can find faults in it that are like, I would say it's nothing compared to movies, but this is a young medium. We gotta take what we can get.
I don't know. I mean, wasn't most of this motion capture?
Oh yeah.
It was a movie.
Yeah.
That you could kill things in.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that the ideal?
I'm not saying that I agree with that. I think this is one of the better stories I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And because it's not just, people look at it as a zombie story, and it's not what it is. Yeah. It's a story about two people trying to find love in a horrible situation.
That's the beautiful thing about, I hear a lot of people say like, "Oh, I'm sick of zombies," but every zombie.
But they're not zombies; they're clickers.
Every sort of like zombie-esque story that I see, there's really an underground archetype with it. Where it is like in The Walking Dead. I guess the archetype is don't die, but I mean that's basically a soap opera. And I think there was something, right? More people in The Walking Dead died from humans than the zombies.
Yeah, I was going to say that The Walking Dead's archetype seems to be more that kind of what Last of Us is, which is that what happens to humanity when they are met with a horrible disaster.
Yeah.
And who's more human, the zombies or the humans?
Exactly.
And I just think Last of Us kind of tackled that better.
I think so too. And I thought that was so interesting because whenever I would find clickers in that game, I'd be like, oh, I forgot these were even in the game.
Yeah. Not to mention, I wasn't really scared of it because I knew if I snuck up really quietly, any direction, I can kill them. But humans, when I saw humans, I was like, oh, fuck, okay. They were a lot more dangerous. They were a lot more scary. And they had a lot more weight because they had a lot more personality attached to them when they were attacking you. So I found humans to be a lot scarier than I did the quote unquote zombies. But yeah, so the thing I remember the most about the game though was the emotional impact of the cutscenes, the scenes in particular. Like one of my favorite scenes of all time in this game that I keep going to and watching just on YouTube. I'll look it up and watch it. Is the scene with Joel and Ellie when they're in that house in Tommy's town, and where they have that argument. And that's because I found the music in that scene to swell in such a way that really drew out the emotional impact of Ashley Johnson's performance in that.
Right.
Which, if you look up, you'll find that really interestingly about it, that part where she pushes him and says, "Everybody fucking except for you," that was improv when Joel or Troy Baker was looking away. And it brought them back into the scene, and they acted that out with such fantastic performance. And the crazy thing is that they had taken like 15 takes before that and couldn't get it right.
Right.
And it was Ashley Johnson's improv shove that kind of set them on track and really brought that emotional weight to the forefront of that scene. So there's that scene. Like I said, Henry's scene. Even the story with Ishmael, if you remember Ishmael, he wasn't an actual character in the game. He was. It was a story that you read about when you picked up journals.
Oh yeah.
And it was you find it from an abandoned boat and follow it into like a sewage area.
Right.
And it was this whole long story, and it was really kind of cool to watch. And that's the other part about this game that's incredible. It's environmental storytelling. It has great use of environment to tell what happened, so you don't need to be told what happened. You can be shown what happened. And that's through journals and diaries and just seeing, blood on this floor. And then you have the scenes where the optional dialogues, like in the music store and the record store with Ellie and stuff. There's just a lot of great little nuances that you can't do in other mediums that really flesh out and make this a story that not only is only right for video games, but is only enhanced by the fact that it's interactive.
Yes.
So that's just, when I combine all these things, this game just kind of floors me. I
think that's the big thing that people need to always remember when looking back and forth between video games and movies, and thinking like, we've had a Doom movie, we've had an Assassin's Creed movie, we've had Tomb Raider, we've had a lot of Resident Evil films. We've had a couple
Tomb Raiders.
Yeah.
We had two bad ones and one decent one. I thought it was decent.
And I remember there for a while they were trying to get a BioShock,
the Mortal Kombat's
movie, to happen. Do you know BioShock?
Yeah. Oh god, that would not work.
It would not work.
No.
And the reason for that is because the entire aspect of that game, that sort of subtle foreshadowing throughout, again, spoilers for BioShock, like hardcore spoilers.
Great, I haven't played it.
No?
I've played it, but I never beat it, but I've already been spoiled on it. I already know the ending.
Okay, so you're cool if I go?
Yeah, I believe you're going to talk about Would You Kindly?
Yeah, Would You Kindly, exactly.
Yeah, I know about that.
The fact that Atlas throughout tells you, or asks you, would you kindly do this, and that you're basically a sleeper agent just doing exactly what he feels. In a movie, that's kind of like, okay, that'd be quite a shocker, but in a video game, it makes you feel even worse because you're like, this asshole made me do all this shit. I created the game, basically.
Yeah.
The only reason all this shit is happening is because I'm fucking everything up.
And it's a brilliant use of the storytelling medium because the player is completely unaware, because of course you're going to do it because the guy is telling you to do it and it's a video game, so you're going to do it. Yeah. There's no out of it because you wouldn't think about it. He tells you to do something, you're like, cool, this guy's giving me a quest. I'm going to go do the quest. And by the end of the game, you're just kind of shocked with the reality that he was toying with you the whole time. It was just a cool little twist on the storytelling medium that they use. And I love when games do that because it really brings out something, once again, truly unique to the medium that books can't make you feel.
Right.
Movies can't make you feel, being so detached.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're still the person away from it looking in, but in the video game, you're in it.
But you've got agency.
Yeah.
So yeah, the last episode I kind of touched on the E3 2018 thing. I wanted to touch on a little bit today to kind of go over it because I found it to be astounding. But kind of wrapping back around to the music of the game, they had performances before the trailer of Last of Us 2, which was Gustavo Santaolalla himself on stage performing a new track from Last of Us 2. And I was on Twitch watching this, and I was sitting there with my jaw on the floor watching all these people shitting on this for being so stupid and boring that they should just show the game. And I was losing my goddamn mind. This is the composer of the game. This is like not only just a composer of the game, this is a composer who has written music for some huge fucking movies like Life of Pi, and that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head right now.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, exactly.
So even still, just that one.
And he is a very well-revered composer in the movie world. And they got him to make his first video game, and he didn't want to. For a long time, he didn't want to because his thing is story. He wants to make sure that he's working on something that is worth it. And this is the first game that ever was worth it to him.
Yeah.
And to top it all off, he's never done a sequel. He never worked on a sequel in a game, in a movie or anything. This is the first sequel he's ever done, and it was for a video game at that.
It's this slow. We keep bringing them in.
Yeah, exactly.
All the good musicians, we're taking them.
Yep. So it blows my mind, and he seems to really care about what Neil has allowed him to do, and about the project. If you watch the video online, the making of the music, he talks about how Neil gave him full autonomy to write the music for it, and he used it, and he came up with some fantastic stuff that we're going to talk about today. So
I understand that too.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous thing for a director to say, just go for it.
Yeah.
My technical director said that to me once before.
You probably shit your pants too.
Yeah. I was like, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? But
so to kind of give an example, I was gonna play that video of the performance, but I don't think we need to. You can look it up.
It's pretty easy to find.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's a very good one from Gustavo. It's a great example of what's to come in the next Last of Us. But I think right now we're gonna switch over and start talking about
individual
tracks about the game
and the overall
that we
soundtrack,
thought were particularly important to the overall sound of the game, or just were pretty awesome itself. So where are we starting?
We're starting with All Gone.
All Gone. Okay. So this one we're going to talk about, and we're going to show you about like 5 songs. Yeah, sure. We're going to show about like 5 of these that are all using the same motive, right? Because like I said back on the Spyro one, very similarly in this game, there's tracks with motives that all represent something. And All Gone is usually referring to everything disappearing, whether it's person's humanity, whether it's a character that somebody loves or something. If something bad happens, this is usually what's playing. So yeah, this is All Gone. This is kind of the main theme. Now what I love about this is its use of strings. If you listen very carefully, you can hear the strings kind of stuttering. And what is it called again?
Right, so this technique on string instrument is called sul ponticello.
Yeah, that's right.
Where, is this the one? That is the sul ponticello?
Yeah, All Gone, the original, the regular one.
Kind of quiet. Yes, yeah, now I hear it for sure. And you can hear the bow, or the performer that's playing it, the bow is kind of like almost stuttering, and it's not going for the full sound, and it's playing more towards the bridge of the instrument, which gives it this very raspy sound. And
he's holding it very light against the string, which is causing it to jump up and down on the string.
And so basically what that creates down there is it creates this
like
huge amount of harmonics. So you're playing, or the individual is playing a specific musical line, but all of the harmonics that are coming out from just one note makes it sound like a chord almost. And it's very very voluptuous. And so now we're going to actually move to another variation. So this little idea, the bottom, so that minor third pops up everywhere in this All Gone motif. And so we're going to go through a whole bunch of different tracks at first that discuss sort of the theme and variations aspect of it. So the next one we're going to do is All Gone Aftermath. Did you find it? Very cool. And so now you can hear in All Gone Aftermath, the sound is fuller now. We don't have that sul ponticello sound. The sound is completely full. It's the same string instrument, but instead of the sound sounding weak, now it sounds strong.
Yeah. Very important thing. This is a song that's particularly used in a very emotional scene. This is used when Sarah passes, and that's the chord that happens right when she passes away. And this is a huge emotional resonance in the game, and it's expressed by having one of the more full pieces in the game. This has got a lot of emotional weight behind it if you can hear when you listen to it, especially in context. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And this, so is this what's his instrument that he plays? The Ron?
No, I think this is just a guitar.
Okay.
Yeah, electric guitar and a stringed instrument. I'm not sure. He uses so many stringed instruments in this, from actual orchestral instruments to something that almost looks like a cigar box.
Well, here's the thing about that is that, we actually we have all of these different orchestral instruments. The bowed strings. We have his guitar. He has his Argentinian, or an instrument that's very famous from the Andes areas. But one thing always stays exactly the same throughout is this idea of space. Mm-hmm. So not only is there musical space, and what I mean by that is that there's silence, but it doesn't even feel like silence necessarily sometimes, where you'll just hear that motif.
It's like a subtle breath.
Yeah, exactly. There's this very organic feeling to
right,
it, and which is nice because all of this music was
actually one of the things
live.
he was talking about in another interview with him, mm-hmm. is that he mentioned that anybody can write notes, and writing a song with a lot of notes, if you practice, you can do that, and you can play with a lot of notes. But a true sign of musicality is knowing when and how long, and everything about silence. And that silence really adds to the emotional impact.
Right.
So I mean, and that's what this whole music is. The music of this game is about using the lack of sound and the mixture of sound and lack of sound to represent this game, because it really is. There's not a lot of people around. Mm-hmm. It is The Last of Us, in name and in body and in music. Mm-hmm. So all that's represented in this.
And what I see a lot, what I particularly love about all of the instrument choices, except for some of the bowed string instruments, sometime, and even the guitar, pretty much every other instrument in here sounds like it could be part of the environment of the game.
Yeah.
Which
especially when we get to the university,
scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
All of the time, where I'd hear this I think the next one is Returning.
Yeah, there is actually some songs that didn't make it onto the soundtrack that are part of. It wasn't actually the composer; it was the sound designers. And what they wanted to do was kind of take influence from Gustavo, mm-hmm. and take influence from the synthesizer that they got. It was also in another video that mm-hmm. The Last of Us put out, and it was really cool. And they found they were able to recreate like a siren, like an atomic alarm type of thing. Right. And during winter, they made that and put a lot of different effects on it and brought it down and put a wind effect over it to include that in the environment itself.
Yeah.
So if you hear it, you can hear it when you're playing. You can subtly hear that alarm go on. And it is just adds to that eeriness factor. Even though it's not something that you consciously hear, it's just subtly there and you can kind of feel it. And it's this really cool use of sound design in order to influence not just music, but sound design too. Yeah. So it was a cool way to kind of incorporate all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the same guys who created the sound of the clicker, which is a really cool story too. If you look up that, you can find out how they created the sound of the clicker. It's a really cool, fascinating story. So do we want to go to the Returning?
Yeah, let's talk about the Returning, and I'll quickly. So in the Returning, we're going to actually hear. I believe this is his Andean guitar, which Tyler will remind us the name of when he gets back, because I don't know how to pronounce it, and which makes me feel awful. But if I saw it spelled, I probably could, but whatever. So in the Returning, you're going to hear this drone that goes along still with this all gone melody, and the you can hear the nail, like an actual thumbnail on the plucked string aspect of it, and that going back and forth with that drone actually sounds like what you could hear perhaps in the world somewhere, where there's maybe sheet metal flapping around somewhere.
It is definitely very eerie, and just listening to this now, but if you think about where it would be in the environment, that subtle like in the background. Yeah. The instrument's called a ronroco.
Okay.
It's Ronroco. It's a variation of the charango.
Charango, yes, I know that one.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so I'm always in love with music that's sort of created to put everyone in this environment, including the music, so that aspects of it are actually diegetic. And so, have we talked about non-diegetic versus diegetic?
I vaguely remember this when I was in school, but no.
So the thing about all sound is that some sound in a medium is diegetic, some of it is non-diegetic. So
I think you went over this a couple weeks ago with me outside of the podcast.
Yeah, so basically when you have like user interface anything, a lot of those sounds are going to be non-diegetic. Why? Because non-diegetic implies that people involved with the story do not actually hear it. But for user interface sounds, they're necessary for us as players to hear them.
Right.
So typically most background music is non-diegetic. Right. Because of this, the characters don't actually hear this guitar.
Sometimes you find some that are fourth wall breaking and are actually both.
Yes. That's what I feel about this.
I read something today about this. It was Lego Star Wars. If you turn off the background music, the band in the cantina or whatever it is, they'll start looking around confused because they don't have anything to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like a little fourth wall break of making it both diegetic and non-diegetic.
What I love is music that is non-diegetic in its background music, but sounds from it are very industrial and sound like what would happen if buildings were deteriorating, and every now and then just like you hear one of these tracks is nothing, it just sounds like all these drums and it sounds like rain, and it confused me in the best possible way, put me in this environment of post-apocalyptia.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Right. One thing we forgot to mention though is that the reason why we wanted to talk about these all together is because of the main motive of the piece. And if you hear the bow, bow, ba-da, ba-da.
It's just two little ideas, and it starts off kind of pentatonic in that sense, because then it also goes ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, and then goes down to that flat 7, which my voice can't hit right now. But yeah, so there's very pentatonic aspects of this music, which seems fitting for a journey across America. We're getting these very folksy, when there is actual melody, it's very folksy.
Yes.
It's as if someone is traveling across the country and the only thing keeping him sane is his guitar.
Yeah, and it's also very befitting, given the fact of the character background of Joel. He's from the South, has that southern draw to him, his voice. So it kind of also befits the character being like that. We have the song here called "The Hour." I believe that's where we're going to.
Yes.
And "The Hour" is another variant on this this melody line. But the difference is, rather than just having the straight melody, he's combining the first couple of notes into chords. Oh, that's the one I was talking about. So is that the choice?
That's the choice.
All right, well, we're doing the choice right now. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So did you mention that? What did you say about this?
I said that that it basically took the first two notes and the second two notes and combined them into chords.
Yes.
So it still creates the same melody, but the length of the notes with where they're located. What am I talking about here? Like rather than being two quarters, rather than being two quarters, it's like in 2/8 notes. Or an eighth and like a dotted quarter.
Diminution.
The diminution of the first two and the second two notes to make them closer together, so it sounds more like a chord rather than a straight melody line.
So that's what I'm always looking for when I'm putting a whole project together. Thanks to Dr. Timothy Labor, I'm obsessed with the phrase
the
luminous kernel Do you remember this?
I do not. I do not
So-
think did he go over that with us?
I don't know, but I will be talking about this a lot.
Yeah, okay.
So the luminous kernel is the one little concept in a piece of music that is the foundation of everything. So for me, I'm always looking for what that is. What is the foundation?
I always thought that is like a motif, but maybe that. Okay, so I'll remember that because I use that a lot. But
he just likes the phrase luminous kernel, and he's
sounds
passed
like
that
something
down.
he'd say.
Well, he passed it down from someone else. I think he passed it down from Kodai actually, and so for me, this minor third is that luminous kernel.
Okay.
And if you're a composer and you need to, and you're feeling lazy, just look at how much music was written for The Last of Us using simply this minor third, and how many times it was rearranged with texture, with augmentation and diminution, as we discussed, and all of these things. And so hearing this one motif all over, it shows. It should show many young composers how to just mess with an idea. Really use your ear to pull this up, and get it going on.
Yeah.
I just love it.
Yeah, and this is a great thing to know. The other thing I want to talk about, the choice, and a lot of these other songs, is its incredible use of guitar tone. Because the choice, when you hear that, the guitar tone on is just so silky smooth and beautiful. And it's also good to know the instrumentation. He doesn't use just a regular guitar. He detunes it.
Yep.
And I don't exactly know if he detunes it to a specific key.
Yeah, it could have been like an open tuning.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
I know.
But I mean, it's interesting. It's a good thing to know that he's not really a traditional composer, and that he doesn't have knowledge of sheet music. As far as I know, he doesn't read and write. He just plays. Like when he writes the music for the movies, he just records it and he plays it and does it himself.
In the video of the making of the music of The Last of Us, he talks about how when he was getting guitar lessons as a kid, before the age of 10, his teacher came home to his mom and said, his ear is better than my music. My music. So so he's just using his ear for all of this. And you can really tell. I mean, there's something very instinctual about the way that this music.
It's also, I mean, and he also uses his feel, because if you listen carefully, it's not really in any specific time. There's a lot of, I mean, if you probably could write it out using a lot of retards and stuff, but.
This would be impossible to write down.
Yeah. But it's all feel. And the great thing is that it comes across. I mean, granted, not all of it is in feel. If there's more than one instrument, he usually keeps it in time. But when it's just a solo instrument, or maybe another instrument that's kind of used as a drone, you'll hear that it's more emotional and less rhythmic based.
Right.
And so that adds a lot to that feel of the piece. So you wanted to go for The Hour.
The Hour, yes.
All
so I love this track, The Hour. This is the first one that's a little different than the All Gone motif. And we get, so this is the track I believe that plays when you walk into the university in Colorado. Yes? Yeah. So you walk into the University of Colorado Boulder. Yes. And you hear this bell sound.
Yeah, it sounds like the chime of a bell when it's time on the hour.
Yeah, so it's this Westminster Quarters, I just looked it up, is the name of this tune that sort of is emphasizing what you would expect to hear from academia, but it still has that Last of Us sound. So he takes the
because it's not the exact Westminster Quarters, because the Quarters, if you guys know, it's a bum 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 bum. So yeah, that's the kind of track that they're kind of basing that off of.
And it's so simple, and yet you're just getting that's towards the end of the game, and just hearing that it gave relief for some reason. I think you'd just gone through like a whole wave of enemies, and then you walk into the university, and you're like, finally, this is where I was supposed to be.
And it gives you a little bit of respite
Yeah.
before going to shit again, as usual.
Yes, that game had a great
Because this was
back and
this was
forth
this was
between-
fall, if I remember right. Because this was before he gets stabbed by the rebar.
yes. Am I wrong? Is that not towards the end of the game?
Yeah,
It is.
because it goes that gets stabbed by the rebar, and then Ellie has to go and try to find antibiotics where she meets David,
Yeah.
which leads to one of the best moments of the game. But yeah, it also uses really cool instrumentations, and one of my favorite things about this game, the music. I'm sure I've said that numerous times, but I'll keep saying it about different things because there's so many great parts about the music in this game. Is his willingness to try to find different sonics and to find different sounds and tones. And it's not so much an emphasis on melody or rhythm or some sort of melodic motive as much as it is about creating emotional weight, as it is about creating...
Destroying myself. Sorry.
As it is about creating some sort of feeling. And he does that really well by experimenting and trying to find these weird sounds that just make you go, what did he do to get that?
Yeah. So what I love about another thing I love about this soundtrack is his extensive use of amplified acoustic instruments. So if you look at that making of video, again, you'll see some particular moments that are
Wandering, I would have to find
actually
that.
just like percussion instruments that had specific like microphones on it, so they were being amplified, and then the tone was altered, from the outs for the out signal, and so many different sounds were created without the use of a synthesizer, which to me just blows my mind. For one thing, I don't have the budget for that, so synthesizers are awesome. But just to see the sheer amount of like creativity that can come from even just amplifying a string instrument, like George Crumb did in the string quartet Black Angels. I mean, that's sort of what I always think about here. And again, the sounds are coming from just string instruments, and yet they sound nothing like a string instrument. And like there was one moment where you said it sounded like a flute.
Yeah,
It got rid of that
crumbs, yeah.
Yeah, it got rid of that. Right, in the crumb thing, and I'm sure we could even see that in some of The Last of Us.
Yeah, speaking of which, there was that song Wandering, right? I believe that's the one that I showed you that kind of made you think of this. So
Yes.
I'll pull that one up and show everybody too.
Wait for it. There it is. Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah.
The one that to begin with.
Yes. So this is percussion here, and there's certain things that make it sound like it was even like dipped in water. And just thinking of different ways of getting different sonorities out of the same instrument. It's very... The reason that's nice compositionally is because, for one thing, again, it has to do with that budget. It's like, here's an instrument, do what you can with it. I remember I had to write a score once with just cello, and they wanted, like, rooster sounds and all these things. And so that was enjoyable, to say the
Is that
least.
something that you did and recorded yourself, or is that like something you had to do with sheet music?
I had to do it with sheet music because the person that played it was very much a classical musician.
Oh, okay.
But the other reason just coming up with new sounds from the same instrument is nice is because there's still a connection. With music, we like to hear repetition.
Right.
So this isn't too far removed from what it used to be. We can still hear that there's a sense of what it was, but that we can tell that it's deteriorating in some way,
Right.
which is like one of the underlying themes of any post-apocalyptic game.
Right.
It's like, there's something that seems so familiar about this. I'm in Wyoming, I'm in Colorado, but something has deteriorated.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think is so beautiful about finding these uses. Because imagine finding like a Stradivarius. Actually, this happens in Fallout 3, where you got to go find a Stradivarius.
Yeah.
And like, what's that Stradivarius gonna sound like this many years later?
Yeah.
And it's not
that's a
gonna
good
sound the
point.
way it should.
Yeah. That's kind of a good point, though, because, like, if you... one of the great things that they did with The Last of Us is they wanted to emphasize that life goes on even after humanity is gone.
Yeah.
So what they did is they had two main elements in this game. The first one, which is throughout the whole thing, is nature taking back over. So you see when you go to New York and you're in New York, you see all this beautiful greenery right in the middle of New York City. And they wanted to make it so that the world was beautiful, even though it was deteriorated and horrible. It had this dichotomy of beauty to it.
That's what I loved about Horizon Zero Dawn.
Exactly,
too.
that was another good example.
Yeah, of letting the world take itself back.
Mm-hmm.
It's rebuilding itself. This natural cycle.
Yeah. The other example of that is the giraffe scene.
I love the giraffe scene.
Everyone does.
That made me so excited.
It's really like the only moment of respite in the game.
Yeah.
And it was another example that even though humans are gone, these creatures are still here.
I gotta say though,
that the world and the universe and everything will not end, even if humanity does.
The whole time I saw that giraffe, I was like, if someone kills this giraffe, I am going to destroy them and mutilate every part of their body, because this giraffe deserves so much better than to be in this world right now.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I was so scared for that giraffe. I was like,
I was horrified throughout most of that scene.
Yeah.
Like, I know most people were like in awe and like they had that happy feeling, but for me, I was terrified.
Something was going to happen.
Yeah.
That's what they set up so beautifully in that game.
Yeah,
that you can't rest.
I think they wanted people to feel that dichotomy of like just joy and terror at the same time, because it fits within the rest of the game.
But that's so perfect, because then we're literally feeling exactly what Ellie felt.
Yeah.
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 That's
just fantastic.
Yeah. So we did the wandering, we did the hour. So by any means is once we start getting to like percussive stuff. Here,
yeah. By any means.
I can turn that one on.
All right.
With the drums.
Yeah, so By Any Means is an example of the battle music of the game. And the incredible thing that Gustavo did in this is, rather than having any melodic, not any, some of them do, but the main focus was percussion. So this is an example of a song that has absolutely nothing else but percussion instruments. And
it's the same percussion instrument. It's literally nothing but a bass drum, right?
I think there's different drums in
They
here.
might throw different toms in.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they all have a very low sound, though. And it's a perfect example of, this is battle music, right?
Yes, it's also great dynamic range, too, because it's got a lot of solo hits, and then it's got that big whap right in the middle of it. What I love about it, though, is they have like detuned drum heads on here, because a lot of the hits are very flabby.
Yeah.
And it gives it a really cool sonic to it. Like I said, everything about this game for me is sonics and just tone of the music itself. And I love when they kind of tweak with the stuff to make it sound a little not right.
What that says to me, so the really loose drum heads gives it a very primitivistic sound,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and again, that brings in this idea that, you know, we're going back to our roots, and humans are just being humans. We're just looking out for one another. If that means I have to kill you, then not so be it. Then I'm going to kill you, and we're becoming animals again.
Yeah, I mean, it really, I agree with you there. It does sound very primitive and kind of tribal.
Yeah. So when you listen to this, this drum idea on the soundtrack, you know, it's all recorded, but it builds up over time, which means, you know, so for this use of adaptive music, he had these different drum loops, and he set them up, I'm guessing, in such a way that you had one drum loop going, and then other drum parts came in over time and added different little accents here and there on top of that to create this unsettling, eventually it's just nonstop drumming.
Right, because overall the piece doesn't sound very cohesive.
Yeah.
The drums themselves. The drums themselves don't really feel like they are in great rhythm with each other.
Yeah. And in that sense, it's almost pulling inspiration then from Steve Reich and all of his minimalistic ideas, where he even went to like different places around the world where they were doing like more tribal drumming, and like one person would start a groove and then someone else would put, you know, a new rhythm on top of it that was in a completely different time signature. So there you get literal polymeter, where someone's playing something in 7/8, someone's playing something in 5/8, and that's a really, really nice way to layer things in video game adaptive music, because the amount of different musical material you can get from creating those different phased on top of phased ideas, when it actually meets up again to sound exactly the way it should, it could take like half an hour to get back to where, if you keep looping them that same way. So it creates an entire amount of brand new material that is perfect for when, you know, you don't know when the battle's going to end.
Yeah.
So he has to anticipate this need for just constant energy.
Right.
And it just keeps overlapping like that.
And you know, here another example that I'm going to bring up and have us listen to is the track "Infected," which is an example of great percussive instruments, but also throwing in some other instruments, some melodic instruments on top of it. So I'm going to play that real quick.
Oh, is this the one that sounds like rain almost, because the drums are like so fast? It's like a flurry. Because that was just crazy to me. It's, yes, kind of. Not quite. Maybe the end of this is. Though I will say,
but the mics that they use on this for the drums in the back kind of gives it a staticky feel to it too, if you kind of listen closely to it.
And again, well, because the drums feel like they're really behind everything in the mix, and they're just kind of underneath everything. So this is one of those sounds with these drums that sounds like it's actually coming from the environment. And so sometimes
so you hear like fluid on top.
Yeah. Very, very atonal. So this is, you know, when we put clickers, this is clicker music.
I'm not sure. I just know this is.
It sounds like it should be. I will say that. It sounds like something has gone terribly wrong. When you listen to this music, there's nothing that gives a sense of humanity to it. So
Ooh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, it looks like it's got like a thunder sheet or something.
Yeah.
Like a little crack.
I'm always it's so infrequent nowadays where you actually get live recorded musicians, and
it's becoming more frequent.
Yeah.
Like, time goes on.
Well, I think it's easier to do that when we say
in AAA games. I'll say in AAA games because they can afford it.
Yeah, Naughty Dog, they're good.
Exactly. Naughty Dog, Santa
money.
Monica Studios, they got the orchestras.
But you don't even need orchestras all the time.
Agreed.
This is not an orchestra.
Sometimes it is. In some of the songs they do have orchestra, but
this is
a lot of it is just
chamber
Gustavo.
music, man.
Yeah.
It's chamber music.
Oh, okay,
and,
yeah.
You know,
I see what
then
you're
you
saying.
can hire. Even still, when they had the orchestral moments, it was probably just hiring the same musician to overlay many different parts.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing on that.
I mean,
because,
possibly, yeah.
You know, when you think of the budget of video games, this is one of the sad things that I've always had to listen to people tell me in the industry is like sound always the last thing. It really is.
Which is pitiful because...
Well, it's pitiful, yet amazing to see what can still come out.
Yes.
Like, imagine if the budget was even bigger for music. I mean,
as like guys who play games and listen to the music, and it's really something that could make or break a game. And Last of Us is a perfect example of taking a good game and making it a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I think really it's the sound design and the music that makes that final leap. That if it didn't have it, if it was just some schmuck on the street who wrote the music, it could have ruined this game. Maybe not ruined it, but it would have definitely lessened the impact.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Oh, gosh. But this is like, I think this could be a solution to when people complain about the fact that there's no real musicians recording the material, and like people in orchestras are getting scared. Well, maybe the answer isn't always have an orchestra. That seems to be what film studios decide to do a lot. It's like, we got it. We've got our people in London. We can just pay them to do it because we've got buttloads of money. But sometimes things just need a little chamber setting, a little bit of sound, not a lot.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to do with a game, and I Am Setsuna fucking stole that idea from me. They didn't steal it from me. They just beat me to it. But the idea of doing the whole game with basically 4 instruments.
Yeah.
Or actually, my idea was to do a musical with the chamber with a string quartet.
You should still do that. That could be an interesting game.
Yeah.
Actually, and that could be, you get the right developers. That musical could be turned into something.
Yeah. So I still want to do that because that'd be really interesting to see what I could come up with and how I could get intense music along with sweet and melodic music into into a game. And you know what? That's why I loved I Am Setsuna so much. And I know we're on a tangent right now, but it's important because that game did such a great job of basically creating an entire soundtrack of sweet music and battle music with essentially just a piano.
Sorry, I just came up with the greatest idea, and I'm not going to say it out loud because I don't want anyone to steal this idea from me.
Okay.
So, sorry. The lock and key.
Lock and key. I'll show me.
I'll show you later.
Oh, you think they're going to see it through the mic?
Absolutely.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
Sorry about that. A little inspiration struck. So
I saw one word on there.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Well,
anyway,
putting different things together.
Yeah.
It involves Telltale games.
Okay, well, that's the only word I saw, so I can tell you that much.
Yeah. So what do we got next?
We have The Last of Us and The Path, A New Beginning. Now, The Last of Us, we could maybe show a couple versions of that because, once again, this is another one that has a motive that is stretched out throughout a lot of the game. And they have really cool, feel to it, right? So which one is this? Is this just Last of Us? Okay. So I'm sure you've heard this. This is the song that you heard.
Yeah, he played this live
at the Video Game Awards back in 2016, I want to say. And this is a great use of the Ron Rocco.
Yeah, what I love about... Well, I just love this instrument because you can really hear the choice of nylon strings rather
and also
than...
hear the Latin influence in it.
Yeah, that...
Yeah. But even just the sound of the strings, it doesn't sound Western. It sounds... damn.
And he's gone.
It's just so good, man, with the swelling of the instruments in the background and just bringing that up. It creates a lot of emotional weight to it.
What we haven't talked about
yet. You got
a
little bit of the electric guitar in the background there.
What we haven't talked about yet is how subtle, or not so subtle? I don't know, I can't tell. This is basically almost the music of Ennio Morricone.
Yeah.
And it's Western.
Yeah.
But it's got its own agro-industrial aspect to it.
Yeah.
But I love, instead of just going, this is probably the most epic piece of music.
See,
in the game.
I felt it was kind of like a mix of Ennio Morricone and country. So it was less Western and slightly a little bit more country feel to it.
Yeah.
Which is, or bluesy, and which kind of gives it a little bit of a different flair than Morricone. But once again, that's cool. I mean, it makes it so it kind of gives you that little feel of a Western, but while still keeping it grounded in its own roots.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's still nice because I was listening to certain tracks and I was thinking to myself, what would I do? And of course, my anticipation for certain tracks was, this is one of the best pieces to actually make a big moment sound right.
Yeah.
But there were so many moments
there were bait and switches.
In my mind, I was like, I was just going to turn this into an agro-industrial thing that sounds like it's from Borderlands all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah.
But then he just brought it back, and I was like, no, yep, that makes sense. I would have been completely wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't have done that, right?
And that's what he did amazing with this game, is it's subtle use of it. And by subtle, I mean, yes, the music is great and it's grand, but when you listen to it in the game, it's very kind of lower in the mix most of the time, and it really is there. And this is something that he said. He's in his movies that he writes for, in the game that he wrote for, and all these, the way he writes music is he wants it to be a silent scene where the music comes in after to reinforce the emotional impact. And the reason he said that is that when you have music swelling in the middle of a sentence, it can really easily dive into melodrama. And he likes to try his best to avoid melodrama. So,
yes.
When somebody gives a sad speech and it starts playing the little violin, you start feeling like, I'll play the tiny violin. And it feels like, okay, come on, guys. You're trying too hard. And that's why when you look at these scenes, all these big scenes, Sarah's death, when you look at Henry's death, when you look at the scene with Ellie when she's butchering the hell out of David, which is probably my favorite scene in that entire game.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
The thing that broke me and made me cry was when Joel grabbed her and said, "It's okay, baby girl." Yeah. I was just like, oh God. Oh God. Oh man. But yeah, whenever the music comes in, it's always slowly and very subtly in the background. And then when the big emotional impact happens and it cuts to black, then the music takes off.
This
and it just there to reinforce what you just felt.
We always use the term Mickey Mousing. It's like a bad, you know what I mean? Mickey Mousing?
Sounds familiar.
So Mickey Mousing is like, imagine old like Disney 40s and 50s things where every little slapstick moment had a little like, yeah. So, and every little moment had music attached to it. But this is Mickey Mousing done right. Like, there are things that land exactly when they should land, which is almost impossible to do in a video game sometimes. Like, how do you make sure that the adaptive music builds up the way it needs to in time for that moment to hit the way it needs to?
Yeah.
But he just wrote it in such a brilliant way that it always made sense and things landed when they needed to. Great.
Yeah. I know there's no video, but I'm going to pull up a scene from the game, and I want us to listen to it and kind of listen to when the music comes in and when the big chords hit and where the emotional impact lies with what Ellie and Joel are saying. Because it's the argument, if you guys played the game, I'm sure you have because you're listening to this, but it's the scene where Ellie and Joel are in Tommy's cabin and they're arguing. It's one of my favorite scenes from the game, and it's because the music is there to impact it in such a way that really reinforces the feel without being corny. So I was going to play that scene and have us kind of see when the sound comes in and how it emotionally it feels. So 1 second.
Let's do it. I'm always amazed by how epic the motion capture acting is these days in video games. I mean, it's literal movies. Like there's no excuse for movies to be as lazy as they are nowadays. Like they don't even need to deal with the technology. Oh my god, I'm so excited for Last of Us Part 2. Intrigued to see what Joel's role is going to be, though.
Is this really all they had to worry about?
Yeah, no kidding.
Boys, movies, deciding which shirt goes with which skirt. It's bizarre.
So as you hear
We're leaving.
right now, there's
And
no
if I
music
say
at
no?
all. Because like I said, Gustavo doesn't like there being
Do you
music in
even
these
realize
scenes.
what your life means?
The lack of music really emphasizes the
Running off
importance
like
of the
that,
scene.
putting yourself at risk, it's pretty goddamn stupid.
Well, I guess we're both disappointed with each other then.
What do you want from me?
Admit that you wanted to get rid of me the whole time.
Tommy knows this area.
Oh,
better
fuck
than-
that.
Well, I'm sorry. I trust him better than I trust myself.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of? That I'm gonna end up like Sam? I can't get infected.
The music is
I
going to
can
start
take
coming
care of
in
myself.
How many
around
close
here.
calls have we had?
Well, we seem to be
After he
doing all right
screams
so
Tommy.
far.
And now you'll be doing even better with Tommy.
Here it is, starting to come in.
Not her, you know.
What?
Maria
a
told me
harmonic
about
background.
Sarah.
Ellie?
And
Right when she brings up Sarah, that's when you get the first note.
Mighty
First chord.
thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I have lost
Another
people
mention
too.
of his daughter.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you.
First real chord is right after that push.
So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
Fuck, this acting is incredible.
I know.
Jesus, oh my god.
You're not my daughter.
No.
And I sure as hell ain't your dad. And we are going our separate ways.
Get it together.
Damn.
We're not alone.
That is one of the first. I was
walking.
in
More inside
when Sarah died. That was when it really drew me in. But it was that scene right there that made me like just realize how special this game was.
What? Yeah. That motion capture acting, it's up there with like when are we gonna get Andy Serkis involved in video games? That's what-
He is, isn't he? Doesn't he have his own studio?
He better because
I want to look this
need-
up, but I believe I heard
I need
that
some-
he. Well, okay, he did Planet of the Apes, the Planet of the Apes game that came out.
Oh, is that the VR one?
No, I don't think it's VR. It's more like a Telltale game.
More like a Telltale game. Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. There
Yeah,
also
but
is a
he
VR
was.
thing.
I think he either was in it or I know he was at least really heavily involved.
Okay.
But it was, I believe, his studio that did it.
Yeah. Because this is, in my personal opinion, I think this is like where movies are gonna go eventually. Because maybe like people get frustrated, or at least I do, of like where I'll see an actor. Okay, like for instance, Superbad, one of my favorite movies. But
Great movie.
Now I can't see Jonah Hill the same way ever again. Though that's the problem. So what if he puts on a suit? Well, actually, I can see him differently because he lost like 70 pounds. But
yeah. Well, I mean, once he started getting into like some serious roles like Moneyball and
I couldn't take it seriously.
really even Moneyball.
I like Moneyball.
All right, but what about Wolf of Wall Street?
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, like he did some stuff to himself. I don't know, like there was some like prosthetic stuff, I think, done to make him look a little bit different. His character was different enough to where I was able to kind of let it go. But any comedy he's in, he's always Seth.
Yeah, right. But it's it's one of these things where I just wonder, like, with games and more of these like Planet of the Apes type of movies, if we're gonna see more. Oh, and like Ready Player One, see more movies.
Still haven't seen that.
Oh, I loved it, but again, that entire movie is like 80s references, video game references.
Yeah,
my life in a nutshell. I was just in such like geek heaven when I was watching that. I didn't even care about the premise or anything. I was like, I get that too. Anyways. But, what I'm hoping to see is that things move towards this sort of way of telling stories where things are almost. It's like the cool thing about Telltale is like those are basically like those pick your direction books.
Yeah.
And
the pick your own adventure books.
And I think we can actually like get ourselves in these stories now. And I think with motion capture and acting that way, it's going to make telling stories very different, which is nice because again, we have to think differently about how we tell the story through music.
Mm-hmm. I will say though, I mean, I think that was one of the cooler decisions that Naughty Dog did for this game, because they could have easily chickened out on the ending and gave you an option about what to do.
Right.
And they didn't. They said, no, you don't get the option. You are saving Ellie and dooming the humanity. Like that's what's happening, because this is not your story, this is Joel's story.
If anyone made the decision to not save her, that person's a psychopath.
I know, right?
And
well, because like
that
when I
made me
was
so
playing
happy.
it, they're like, it's for the betterment of humanity. I'm like, what fucking humanity?
Yeah,
There's no humanity in this world.
I know every person you came across wanted to kill you anyways.
Yeah, except
who were you saving?
Except for all the people who died.
Yeah, exactly.
So, in your care and
only
next to you.
Young.
Yeah. So it's like, what humanity are we saving? There's no humanity here. So the fact that he went after the only person that was worth saving in this planet to him was Ellie.
Yeah.
To me, that's a sign of a father. A father would destroy the world in order to save his daughter.
I don't usually clap at the end of video games because it's too meta.
Yeah.
I clapped after this one.
Yeah.
It was just very, very well done. And
I think for me, I just sat there like agape and just in silence for like until the credits finished rolling. Mm-hmm. And then I just cried. Yeah. There's just, oh man, so many great moments, including the last moment that we're going to talk about this game, which is the path, the new beginning.
And then we talk about the prequel, basically.
We could do that. Path, the New Beginning is the song that plays right as the credits roll, which is important. It doesn't matter, you can just click on there. So a Path, the New Beginning, this is the scene where Ellie asks Joel to swear to her that everything he told her about the Fireflies was true, and that they hadn't been able to find a cure.
Yeah.
And he said, which either cemented him as a bad guy in a lot of people's eyes, or cemented him as a father protecting his daughter in my eyes, so he swore to her, and she said, okay. And then that chord that you just heard kicked into the ending credits, where it showed the splash screen of The Last of Us going into the ending credits.
I think you made a great point earlier about how over the entire course of the game, I never realized this, is that the music does become more harmonious. Like, the harmonic excitement. There's more than like one chord in a song or a piece of music over time. So it's always changing, basically, and this growth shows...
Like, you can hear this song is far more optimistic than anything else in the game.
So
I think this is probably even in a major key.
Yeah. So it's showing the growth of them, their relationship, the harmony of them together. And it's...
Like, I think this is...
my semiotics again.
Yeah. I think the music is almost like an audio manifestation of Joel's character. And in the very beginning, it's tense and untrustworthy or untrusting. And it's always dark and very pessimistic. And as he meets Ellie and goes through everything with her, you start hearing a little bit more harmonious tones. The tempo starts picking up a little bit, and then you start actually getting songs in time. Like this one's actually got a stable rhythm to it. You can feel the beat, whereas most of the other ones you can't. And that continues into the next game, Last of Us Left Behind. So yeah. So we'll be right back.
All right, so now let's talk about the Left Behind.
Yeah, Last of Us Left Behind. So if you haven't heard, Last of Us Left Behind is the DLC that came out after Last of Us.
If you haven't heard, you're sleeping.
Yeah, no kidding. It's really cool. There isn't a lot of action in it. It's kind of more of a personal story between Ellie and, what's her name?
Rose.
No.
I know, that's wrong. I don't know, but let's go with that.
All right, yeah, sure. Emily and Rose.
No,
Riley.
I'm gonna look
It's
this
Riley.
up. There we go. I was right with the R.
Yeah.
I saw the R and it was like...
Yeah, with Ellie and Riley. And they're friends. If you've read the Last of Us comic book that came out, they kind of give you a little bit more of a backstory between them. It's a very sweet game, very cute. Very fun. The little bit of action gameplay that they do have takes place in the winter after Joel has been stabbed and she's trying to find antibiotics for him. Before she finds David, I believe, though.
Right,
it's kind of in that area.
If I recall right, it's got this kind of like flashback feel.
Yeah.
Where she's trying to figure things out, when she thinks back to
Because
this
if
time.
I'm correct, it's in that same mall, which is why she's flashing back to it.
Perhaps, or they're near it.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember.
Yeah. So Last of Us Left Behind, some really cool stuff. They did a little bit of different thing with the gameplay that they never were able to implement in the first one because of time restraints, which was the ability to have the clickers or the infected and human enemies at the same time fighting. And if you're smart about it, you can make them fight each other and kill each other and then pick off whoever's left over. So that was originally supposed to be in the original game, but due to time constraints, they couldn't do it. So they put it in this game. So we're going to look at a few songs from this one. I already showed you one of them, which was Wandering. It was just the one that kind of reminded you of Crumb.
Yes.
Yeah, so on top of that, let me see which other ones we have going on here.
Well, didn't you also want to show the Fleeting? Is that what we're doing this? All right, so what's really interesting about these tracks is Gustavo was going for more of a playful feel for it, right? Because we don't have, the rugged testosterone of Joel involved now. So we have, and the characters are much younger. So literally show more like a childlike, wonderment. There's actually toy piano in the recording of this. And it's another great example of how sort of like a traditional instrument, not that a toy piano is that traditional, but of how it's thrown in to sort of give this sense of childlike amazement with the other craziness that's happening throughout the game.
Right. But it still has that eerie feel.
Yeah, again with that idea of musical space, that's not changed at all.
Yeah.
He's playing just a couple notes here and there.
And the other interesting thing is that this is one of the few songs in the games that actually has a full 4/4 rhythm to it. It's got drums with the hi-hat going on every other beat or every beat. And so it picks in with some snaps, and it kind of gives you a traditional 4/4 feel rock, almost rock song.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool having that mixed with the toy piano. So this is Affection. This is Fleeting Affection. And then there's also Fleeting, which is a different version take on this, a more somber approach, which brings the toy piano back towards the end of the song.
Yeah.
Which we'll play after this. But so the toy piano, when you're listening to it, has that sweet, innocent child sound that a horror movie has, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where you hear that and you're just like, oh, shit's not right.
Yeah. Though I still, compared to that sort of feel, it kept me more relaxed than I was in the main game.
Well, when you bring in these other instruments, it kind of mellows it out. But at first, it was a little creepy for me.
Yeah.
But bringing in all the other instruments, it does kind of mellow it out and create a nice little sweet melody to go along with the rest of the piece. Because, yeah, I just found this track to be kind of a really cool little sweet number. Although, while keeping that eerie feel that permeates through all of Last of Us.
Right.
Because even in the moments of sweetness, there is still that underlying horror, terror.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see if the music since Ellie's going to be the main character of The Last of Us Part 2.
So now we're listening to Fleeting, just the original version.
Yeah, I wonder if since Ellie is going to be the main protagonist of The Last of Us Part 2, if the music's going to be calmer like this. Though I know she's grown up now, and so there's a whole different...
But the vibe is different in the game. They've said numerous times that if Last of Us 1 was about finding love in a world of shit, Last of Us 2 is about hatred. It's about vitriol and when that breaks.
Great.
So this is about Ellie trying to get revenge for something.
Fuck yeah.
And we do not know what that is. There are theories all over that it's Joel is killed and she's out trying to get revenge for someone taking her daddy. Or that it's that girl from the trailer from Last of Us 2. And that somebody killed her. And I think, possibly, my theory, is that it could be Fireflies come in and just kill everybody. And maybe Joel is the only one left. They kill like that whole town.
Right.
And it's not just the fact that it's one or two people. It's everyone that she's grown with for the last 5 years. You know, because this takes place when she's 19. So this is 5 years after the end of Last of Us. So she's gotten time to grow with and learn these people and fall in love, and not just like literal love, but also in love with all these people and to know who these people are so my theory is that it's taken away from them by the Fireflies.
I don't think that girl we saw in the trailer is who is going to or is dead, because I think that person might they've said that someone's actually gonna still follow you around in this game. I think that's who that will probably be.
I think
you'd always
I think I heard someone say that Ellie's wearing her watch though, or her wristband or something like that. In the game when she's fighting, when she's in the future or whatever, she's wearing something that the girl is wearing in that cutscene.
Oh, jeez.
So that's I've heard. I haven't confirmed that, but that's what I heard. So if that is the case, maybe she does. But I feel like there would just be more emotional resonance if Joel was killed. Here's another theory I have, because I just love theorizing about this shit. A lot of theories have been pointing out that you might be playing as Ellie's mother in this game, as kind of like a dual protagonist, past and present type of thing.
Oh, interesting.
Where you'd be playing in the past as Ellie's mother, and then playing in the present as Ellie. If that were the case, what if somehow Ellie found out that by happenstance Joel killed Ellie's mother, or something like that?
No, I can't deal with that melodrama. What do you think? Oh, you think she's gonna want to have to kill Joel now?
That's what some people have been theorizing, that Joel will end up being it'll end up being Joel versus Ellie.
That would be ridiculous. Then how are they going to get part 3? See, that's the problem. Monetarily, that makes no sense because Naughty Dog's gonna milk this for all it's worth, and you know they are. I hope not. Yeah, I know. Let's stick with what's best. But I think first off, I will just say, like, along that idea, the fact that this was probably the first game where I actually had to deal with, that non-player character that follows you around. I hate that in games. When I was playing through Resident Evil 4.
Ironically, there were 2 games in my existence that I...
Yes, wait. Back to the mic.
Weirdly,
Yeah,
there are 2 games in my life that I've played where they have escort missions, and I thought that they handled them amazingly.
Okay.
They both star Troy Baker, and they came out within months of each other. That is BioShock Infinite and The Last of Us.
BioShock. Yes. BioShock Infinite. This is correct. Don't get me started on that. See, I've literally written an entire scholarly article about the music of BioShock Infinite. So we should bring that in at some point.
Yes, because especially the.
Or I could, in fact, I know we've thought about maybe doing like little small videos about things. I think that would be better because I made like a PowerPoint, like a 10 or so minute presentation, and I could talk about that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do that.
Okay,
That sounds
cool.
like a blast, actually.
Because especially all of the almost radio station-esque songs that you get, like the barbershop quartet versions of all the modern songs.
Yes.
So cool.
Oh yeah, no, there's an entire day to talk about that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so look out for that in the future on our YouTube channel when we have it up and running. We'll be posting these podcasts to it in video format, hopefully, and we will also be posting other music-related videos. Either an analysis of music theory and popular media is something that I was looking at doing, and then we might bring in a bunch of other people to do guest appearances on their own videos. So,
yes, I will. I have some students in the, or as a teaching assistant, I have students, and I will convince them to come in and share their wealth of knowledge.
Are there other ones who are into games?
There are. I actually did an
Very cool.
entire.
Because when we were there, I felt like it was just me, you, and Tyler Fan.
Yeah, who I've not really met, but he knows me and has kept saying to people, I want to meet Christian. And even though we've been in the same room, he's just not actually.
He's a cool guy, man. He's cool because he has some great. He has some great ideas about composition too. Because he is very much the he's the I think it was him who was talking about how he wants to make it almost entirely player input based about how music is created. So okay,
I've got a whole paper on that too.
Yeah,
which is that's
where it's all completely influenced by the player, and that the music is purely dynamic, where it's not so much an actual composition as it is setting the parameters for the music to create itself.
Yeah, no, I have an entire concept about algorithmic composition.
You might have some fun talking with him about that stuff.
Ooh, yeah, because I actually want to create a whatever.
Sorry.
These are certain things that we'll talk about other than just our topic of the day. There's all these things that all of us are thinking about. As the crazy thing about video game music is we've been going through this world now for 30 years basically, and have gotten so many improvements since the beginning of video game music, where this is probably the genre of music that's grown the most. It's where we had all these limitations.
At least in time-wise, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and exactly. And in 30 years we can do all this. So now we have to start thinking about other possibilities.
Yeah.
And I know some games actually that already have some of these dynamic approaches to
I already mentioned Flower before by Vincent Diamante. Funny story about him. I went to Anime Expo in 2014 with my buddy, and it was the first time that I'd been there since I was able to drink legally. So we went to the bar and got slammered. And I was like, let's go karaokeing. So we went to the karaoke bar around the corner. That's still a part of the Anime Expo. And that was a mistake, number one, because all the songs are anime songs, so they're all in Japanese. And although I do understand a little bit of Japanese, actually singing it is an entire different story, and I don't know all those anime songs.
You got to bring in Still Alive and sing that karaoke, right?
Well, funny thing that you say that. There was a guy up there on the iwi playing that.
Yes.
Yeah, and the guy who was playing the iwi, I found out later, was Vincent Diamante, the composer for Flower. So I'm drunk as hell, and I go up. I'm like, I hear everybody say thank you to Vincent Diamante. I was like, "Brr."
Yeah.
I was like, no way. Are you fucking kidding me? Because I would listen to this guy's music on my Vita to sleep every night. I would have my Vita, and I downloaded it and bought the soundtrack on PlayStation Store. Downloaded it to my Vita, and I would just sit there and play it and go to sleep to it. Because the music is incredible. It is so good. And as far as I know, that's like the only song the only game composition he's done, unless he's done some other stuff, but that was the biggest one.
To look at that.
And he's a professor, but that was his big thing. So I went up to him afterwards, and in a very awkward conversation, a back and forth, I was like, so, I said, do you do anything else? Do you play any other instruments? He's like, oh, no, really, I play this. I was like, oh, okay, well, sorry, I must have gotten you confused with somebody because there's, you said your name is Vincent Diamante. There's this game called Flower. He's like, oh, yeah, I wrote that. I was like, oh, it is you. Awesome. Big fan. And then I didn't know where to go with that. So I was just like, thanks, bye.
Yeah, the fanboy.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I don't know what to say. Anything I say can and will be used against me.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. He was very cool from the very brief moment that I talked with him. But it was just a really crazy happenstance moment where it's just like, I'm going to get drunk and go with my friends to this really nerdy thing that doesn't have a lot to do with video games. And, I just met the composer for one of my favorite video games of the PlayStation 3 generation. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. So do you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, you know what? Real quick, we went on a tangent, but there's one more song I want to touch on. And this is a very, very sweet and very personal moment. This is basically the theme for Ellie and Riley. And I'm not entirely sure where it plays, but my assumption is this one, the kiss. But it's very sweet. It is this one. This is called Left Behind Together.
Yeah, I don't remember this. Yeah, there's definitely actual, harmony happening here.
Yeah.
Very...
Yeah, which is strange.
Yeah.
Different for...
Well, it's different for...
The Last of Us.
For The Last of Us, exactly. But it's still got that guitar foundation of everything.
Yeah, it definitely fits. It's just a little bit different. But this is the most human moment in the entire series so far.
I know. Which says a lot, because there's some pretty fucking deep, yeah, that sounds like what post-apocalyptia would be moments in this game.
Yeah. But the moment where Ellie and Riley kiss, it was a shocking moment at first, because you're like, oh shit, I did not expect that. But it's very cute and very sweet, and there was a lot of ambiguity to it, of whether or not she's actually lesbian or whether this was just a momentary moment of happiness, so it felt like it was the right thing to do, or if it was just kind of like a in a post-apocalyptic world, what is sexuality type of thing.
Yes.
Does it really matter when you're in a world where there's nobody left? So, but however you decide to look at it, I just found it was to be one of the more humanizing moments, and the music really reflects that in this. And I know it's about the two because it's called Left Behind Together, which is the whole point of the
DLC.
Yeah, why don't we just stay and lose our minds together?
Yeah, I'm just so blown away by the subtlety in all of this music, because everything I do is so maximalistic, and I just go overboard with everything.
I'm still trying to learn how to do this, because I've always done minimalism. I've always done minimalism, but I think that was more of a limitation of my abilities rather than anything else, right? So for my time at UCR especially, it was about trying to go bombastic to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
And now I realized that my minimalism wasn't minimalist enough for me. That it really was just... I never used silence in my music for a long time, and that's my big approach right now, trying to do, is figure out how to properly use silence.
Yeah. It's not like exact minimalism in the sense of what the minimalistic music genre is, but no, it's minimalism in this approach of just doing less.
Right. And I guess that's what I meant by that, because
well, it's so difficult in video games nowadays to think about that, because you typically, we started with getting all of these loops, so you couldn't at first get all this dynamic music happening. So we had to do things like we already had to have the big moment in the piece of music. We talked about this a couple weeks ago with Spyro. The big moment of the piece already had to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
But now, thanks to adaptive music, we can grow the way that the music needs to.
Yeah.
To get
so
there.
How do you think adaptive music is written? Like 3 different versions, like of the same, like within the same, like they structure it the same and they just kind of change it.
I've done it many ways.
Yeah.
And I've not really done it too much myself. I've done practice, like demos and ideas of thinking about it. But I think that one track, By Any Means, is a perfect example where basically what you can do is you can take one loop and start it there. And I like to think of it like a brick. We're trying to build a wall, basically. And so all of these bricks can be different sizes. Sometimes, one will be like a loop or an ostinato that is like half the length of another one, and all these different things. And we just kind of put them together and overlap them in a way to create, so by the end, where we have this whole wall of sound.
What is the definition of an ostinato again? Is it like just kind of like a loop-ish?
Yeah, an ostinato is just something that repeats.
Okay.
I'm just trying to...
Short phrase, or...?
I'm just trying to think of it in terms of, I wrote a paper about Stravinsky's ostinati.
Yeah. I'm just saying, when we use technical terms, I figured we'd actually kind of give a definition for those who don't know.
Of course. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I apologize. Yes, so an ostinato is just a musical idea that keeps repeating. And so what's really nice is that in one of my papers, kind of like how we were talking about our algorithmic approaches to writing music, I've always thought about this idea. What if we took a piece of music and created all of these different loops or ostinati that are different lengths and then smash them together? It wouldn't necessarily be following specific harmonies, though it could if you had a very smart way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it would basically be this idea of creating a nice foundation, and then on top of it doing something else so that they kind of offset against one another. And that's how I think some of the best adaptive music can work, when it's constantly changing form, because nothing is like this brick that is the whole piece. Some things can come in at different times, and it feels fine to actually have things change.
Because there's some sort of connecting tissue between them.
Yeah. I think we should do an entire... We should look for a really perfect adaptive music score and talk about that.
So I could kind of see it where you have a piece going and then it ends on a certain chord, and then you create a bunch of different loops that start with a similar chord that it could choose between those or something
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
And so that last chord is basically the stinger.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that we were talking about BioShock Infinite, one of my favorite moments in BioShock Infinite, or I just love the battle music, and then the battle music, how is it going to know when to end? Well, once the last enemy is done, you hear this little sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then it's this violin shreds up, and then sound just stops.
You get a very similar thing with Uncharted every time. You get the little boom, boom, boom at the end with the drums. And it's got that constant loop with it, and then at the very end it does a very hard, what would you call that? Oh my god, my music terminology is not shit since I've been out of school. A sudden loud hit,
at the end?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a stinger.
Stinger? Okay. Yeah. I was thinking of more not like a sforzando.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. And it's these really interesting ways, and what I love, that's why I love video game music. I have to think about it computationally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always something, again, that I've been contemplating, and I'm always thinking about where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm.
Because certain games still just need the loops, which I hope that never changes. But
well, I mean, not every game is the same.
Yeah,
not every game is equal, and I don't mean that as in quality. I just mean in, when you think about iOS games or those type of little games that are like Flappy Bird or whatever, those games don't need orchestral, big swelling, dynamic shifting, like changing, like, you know, pieces like that. They just need a little happy violin or a little happy ukulele going on in the background. You know, like, you know, it just depends on what the game calls for, which is also kind of great. And as a composer, when I was trying to work on video games, when I did, it was kind of cool having a little bit of structure and then having them tell me, okay, we're doing a game about medieval mini games. All right, like that was the game that I started working on, and I didn't able to finish because I had to focus on school, unfortunately. But I got my degree, so I don't care that much. But at the same time, you know, like I remember doing the title theme, which was based around the Dorian mode, and that was my main thing. I was like, all right, I'm gonna make this, and it's gonna sound medieval. I want to do modal, and I want to follow the traditional modal structures of having the of how it ends. You know, kind of like going back down to the one from and following that kind of more traditional approach to mode structures. And I did that, and the piece kind of came out pretty cool.
Right.
And then I started building on top of it and adding instruments, and then from there I started making a little bit of variation to it with the harmonies and everything on top of it to kind of give it a little bit of a different feel.
And in that sense, you're doing exactly what Gustavo did. You know, he just took the same musical material.
Not nearly as well.
That's difficult to do. So yeah, no.
Well, the guy is a master at his craft. I'm just an apprentice.
And that's just it. It is craft. We must not forget that all of this can be learned. There is no such thing as talent. I believe.
I have no musical talent. I started in college. I think I mentioned it last week.
It's a refining process, the composition world is. But exactly, I mean, that's what is so great about The Last of Us. All of looking through this list of tracks we talked about again, so much of it is a lot of the same exact material, but the way he used it in so many different ways, he just got away with so much. And he wasn't getting away with anything. He was doing what was necessary. We didn't need, this incredibly bombastic, like agro-industrial sound. That
could have detracted, I think.
Yeah.
I think the subtle approach and the approach using to get emotional, to get emotion through tonality. That's not the right word, is it? Tonality, specifically like tonal versus atonal. I'm talking about like the sonics of it. Yeah.
The word tonality can be used in like a billion ways.
Okay. Well,
it's a bad word because of that.
Yeah,
but
the sonics and the feel of the instruments and the way that they're used and the sounds that they produce and the way they're recorded and whether it's got a little bit of distortion or no distortion, maybe it has a lot of reverb. All these things, rather than just the melody itself, really, really do wonders with this game.
Yeah.
And they really change it from being a good game into a fantastic game and just an emotional roller coaster. And this game will always be in my top 5 because of it.
All games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's at 1.
Right.
I'm giving the gaming universe 4 attempts
to get better.
To get better, yeah. That's how much
you don't even have any other top 5 that you just know this one's at number 1.
Yeah, and then I got they kind of go, but I'm sure Metal Gear is up there somewhere. There's going to be a Final Fantasy up there.
Which one is the question?
Probably 12.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
choice.
I love 12.
That's a fun game.
Yeah.
It doesn't get enough credit.
It really doesn't. It gets too much shit. It's because it's fantastic.
At least it was still open world and wasn't Final Fantasy Tunnel.
I like 13.
Whatever.
Let me rephrase that. I liked 13.
Yes.
I did not love it. It was not my favorite at all, but I enjoyed it, and I thought the characters. I like lightning. I like snow.
It was the only game I couldn't.
But
finish.
I think snow I only liked because it was Troy Baker. Even though I knew snow because of. Snow was the first Troy Baker character that I had known of, but I liked his voice, and then everything after that.
It's so crazy.
Kanji Tatsumi, get bent.
All right. Well, I think we've reached our point of completion where we got. So I think some of the most important aspects of what's compositionally great about The Last of Us music, in terms of narrative, in terms of just musical development and all that. So
TLDL. Play Last of Us.
Wasn't it DR?
Too long, did not listen.
Oh, did not listen. Oh, I'm an idiot. Yes, yes, I can spell. That's a thing that I can do.
Anyway, play Last of Us. So moving on to the next game was what's going to be our next one. Since I picked this one, what do you got?
You want me to pick the next game?
I probably should have talked to you before this.
Go grab your book of suggestions. I have some thoughts. I can always talk about a Final Fantasy game.
Okay. I can always talk about them too.
When I think about my favorite Final Fantasy, but I want to like. At some point, I want to like keep holding off Final Fantasy because it's gonna be like, woo, Final Fantasy. At some point, I got to do it.
You know, you were talking about BioShock,
I was talking about BioShock.
but you want to do that YouTube video, right?
Yeah, I think we should turn that into a little, because I have this, basic outline of things and how it relates to certain things, and I think we could turn that. It's probably better if we turn that into a video.
Okay.
But-
Well, how would you like to? No, I want to save that until we actually get a trailer for Final Fantasy VII.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Being wary about that.
Yeah, because I
What
want to.
about-
Like I told you that I wanted to talk about the Distant Worlds and whether how they were going to orchestrate the new music for 7.
I feel like I'm going to open Pandora's box with this one, but how about we do Kingdom Hearts?
Yoko Shimomura, I'm down.
Kingdom Hearts next week, the entire series, all of it, including Unchained, because that version of Dearly Beloved is my life.
All right.
It's real nice.
Well, I got
yeah.
some studying to do. I played one through half of 2,
Through half of 2, okay.
or through 20 minutes of 2.
I'll tell you,
So
I'm
I
also
did-
going to be
yeah.
lagging a little bit on some of the spin-offs. I've played through
We don't need to
Dream
focus on
Drop.
everything. We could just
Yeah.
focus on what we want to.
A lot of it, though, is the same music, and I'm really interested
Yeah.
in talking about how how she went about the arranging
Mm-hmm.
of Disney tunes to make them her own.
Oh yeah,
Because
yeah.
a lot of this music is just from Disney.
Yeah.
She didn't really, like, I'd say half the
I mean, all the
music-
original stuff within Sora's world, I'm sure those are originals.
Those are- yeah,
but
absolutely.
when you actually get to the lands,
And then when you take a look at music like Traverse Town,
Mm-hmm.
that's an original. That's not actually from Disney, but it sounds so Disney.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's
All
what
right.
we're talking about next week.
Cool.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm Christian,
I'm Tyler.
and that's 8-Bit Symphony. Until we have another name.
Yeah.
We're thinking about it.
All right. Later, guys.